Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman,
And I'm Mike Messinio.
and this is the weekly movie throwdown, a discussion show where each week we talk about a film that fits into our overall monthly theme. This month, it's November. That theme is noir, specifically Barbara Stanwyck and Veronica Lake films. And this week, we are going back to Veronica Lake, and we're talking about The Blue Dahlia from 1946, directed by George Marshall. Getting back into actual noir after the debatable Clash by Night last week. So it's going to be fun to dig into those tropes. Before we do, Mike, what's going on in the industry today?
Yeah, so the big thing that I came across was there was a deal struck between this place called 11 Labs, which is like an AI company that generates voices, like actors' voices, so that can be used in the future. And I was reading about how like Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine both signed up with this company to essentially give them their voices so that they can either change their voices into other languages, or for Michael Caine, that he could continue to do voiceover work, even after he's passed away. And of course, his feeling is that, look, whatever he says, I mean, my feeling is that it just reeks of pomposity, I guess you would say, that you feel like your voice should be used for all time. And it's like, it's not even about you. It's like, well, other people could do that work after you're gone.
Yeah.
I think that that's what people are missing, that there's the thread of that. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, other people are waiting in line to take places. It's like, if your voice can be used forever. And interestingly enough, Morgan Freeman, who has a voice that has been used in more things than anybody aside from James Earl Jones, is 100% against it. And he feels like it's, there's a certain humanity that's lost. That's obviously that's the way that I feel about it, but more so, again, it's like, yeah, if you can use the voices of some of the greatest voice actors ever, you could just use James Earl Jones for everything. Well, why would they ever bring anyone else to do anything? I don't think that anyone appreciates that. I just feel like it's a very selfish idea that you're so important that your voice should be used forever. I mean, McConaughey's slightly different. Supposedly, what he used it for was to convert his audio book, I think, into Spanish language. But they were able to use his own voice, but make it in Spanish so that, he was saying it even though he doesn't know Spanish, which is an interesting idea. And I'm not sure how I feel about that necessarily, but it's an interesting thought, and I can't necessarily argue that it's terrible. But the other thing, just the idea of being able to use anyone's voice forever, just feels kind of icky to me.
Yeah. I mean, it does have pomposity to it, but I think that comes from the studios kind of asking for it. Like, making these people to go to. I don't even know that Michael Caine is like, I mean, I know everybody has an impression of him, but I don't necessarily think of him as like a voiceover guy. So it's kind of interesting that he would be so on board with it. But yeah, Morgan Freeman, that's the thing I saw, is that he's very much against it. And like, if anybody should be, concerned about their voice carrying on in perpetuity, it's Morgan Freeman. So I think him speaking out against it is very interesting. And the
Yeah, but the
McConaughey
scary part
thing,
with that, sorry to interrupt, but the scary part with that though too is that, after an artist passes away, and we see this with musicians all the time. I mean, you don't control necessarily what happens to your legacy unless you put it in writing specifically. And we've seen that with, families trying to make money off of the legacies of artists and releasing stuff that shouldn't necessarily have been released. I mean, my fear is that the families of well-known actors who pass away, they could sign those deals and they could
right?
provide enough voice stuff so that something could be generated. There's just no guarantee of that. If Morgan Freeman's kids need money 30 years down the road, who knows what happens?
Yeah, I'm glad he put it in writing, and it's kind of scary that you have to opt out rather than
Right.
like being the norm of like needing to opt in. I mean, that makes it feel very insidious. But the McConaughey thing is interesting because I know our company is talking about using AI voices in audiobooks, and I think that's kind of a big thing in the publishing industry right now. And I'm like you. I don't know exactly how I feel about it, but it does seem like that could offer an experience that might not be there otherwise. So, if someone in a Spanish speaking country buys the audiobook and this isn't incorporated, they're not going to hear McConaughey like say the words. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I haven't thought about it, but that's like my instinct is to just be like anti AI, and there are some cases where maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not. I don't want to I don't want to plant my flag in the ground as an AI adopter, but
Right. It's a grayer
yeah,
area. There's no doubt about it that puts that into a bit of a gray area, and I can understand, feelings about it being a positive things, but the other way, no.
yeah,
So yeah, we'll just leave that there. But the other thing that I came across, it was an article in the New York Times talking about how there's been 25 dramas and comedies that have come out in the past 3 months, and how they've all been failures, and talking about this general thing about dramas and comedies being the two genres of movie that are just taking huge hits at the box office. And I have to admit that when you see it in writing, and it really made me think about how I go to the movies as well, I can understand what's going on. And I think as movie prices have gone up, and if you have to make a choice, yeah, it's like people like to go see horror in the theaters. But if you had a choice between a drama or an action movie, the idea is, well, where am I getting the bang for my buck in terms of, what do I feel like would be a better on-screen experience as opposed to something I could probably watch at home? And because the streaming windows now are so small, people are more inclined to think, oh, well, I can just wait a couple of months and I can watch it at home. But an action movie, you feel like that's something worth seeing on a big screen. And I had this same experience this past week because I told you last week that I was debating going to see Nuremberg. But I didn't go see Nuremberg. I went to go see The Running Man because I felt like The Running Man was the kind of movie that made more sense on a big screen, right? And so I get
yeah.
the calculation. I do. It makes sense. Unless you're seeing 4 or 5 movies a month and you can see everything. But I think because it's cost prohibitive now that most people don't do the subscribe programs. I think if you have to choose, you're going to pick a genre that's better suited for the big screen, and you're going to leave those other movies to at home streaming.
I mean, it makes sense, and the cost is definitely the driving force, and yeah, you want like I mean, we're gonna get into this. I watched 14 movies in the last 5 days, that like making up for lost time
I was going to
because I've
say, definitely made up for lost time. Wow.
been on the road for a month, as we talked about, and I haven't had the time to watch anything. But I went to see Tron because that was something I really wanted to see in a theater, and that experience was excellent. I mean, that paid off way more than it would have been. My TV's kind of big, but it's not movie screen big. So I think you definitely get that added value by seeing something like that. And The Running Man too. I mean, that might play just as well on like a smaller screen, but the action of it, yeah. I mean, you want to see that movement, you want to see that energy as big as you can, and it makes sense. I mean, I'm somebody who subscribes to the AMC Stubs program, so I go to see everything because for me, they're human stories, and whether it's action or drama, I want to see it as big as I can. But yeah, I get it. I mean, it's expensive, and Hollywood's not doing itself any favors like, with
No,
big
but
budgets.
right, but it's also a bit of a catch-22 because,
Yeah,
for the studios, the dramas are the movies that end up being around for award season. So it's not like you can stop making those movies because those are the movies that will always be the movies that can win you the awards that the studios are searching for. And maybe down the road they won't be. Who can say? Maybe they won't care that much about that anymore. But since that's how it's always been, I mean, they're going to keep making those kinds of movies regardless of if people go see them in the theaters. And so I think it's a strange kind of inflection point that we've reached where, I mean, we've already talked about how the movies people are going to see versus the movies that are winning awards have been diverging for years now and almost decades. And are we going to reach a point now where the studios decide chasing awards or prestige is no longer worth it, and it's easier to just chase the money at the box office? But I don't know. But streaming also changes that calculation, because supposedly these movies do make money on streaming when they go there. At least some of them do. We don't know because they don't release that information, but it must, or else I can't imagine that they would still be doing it as much as they are. So it's just an interesting thing to follow and see where things are going to go.
Yeah, I think the smaller screens are really like training people and doing a disservice to the experience, because a lot of things that people just wait for on streaming, like it's such a better time to see them on the big screen. Like, I don't know what your experience was with The Running Man, but when I saw that, I thought like, this has so much action, and especially with Edgar Wright directing, there's so much to it that it deserves that larger format. And if people see it on a TV that's 50 inches or something, maybe they're not going to get everything out of it that they would necessarily otherwise. But the other thing is that because we're talking about blockbusters and what the studios are cashing in on, Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver wrote a script for a Ben Solo Star Wars movie, like completely on their own, and Soderbergh pitched it as like a $10 million film. So here you have a Star Wars property that costs $10 million. It's money in the bank. But Lucasfilm had no interest in it. Like, they just did it by themselves. And when they took it to the studio's like, no way, because it was $10 million. Even though you have Steven Soderbergh writing it and probably directing it and Adam Driver attached, I mean, that just tells you that these properties want to spend money to make money. And when they do that, I think that they're kind of like cutting out the opportunity for like a smaller film in that brand to make as much money. Now, I know the Solo film probably didn't cost as much and it didn't do very well, but if you have Soderbergh and Adam Driver on board for this and it's $10 million, that's like monopoly money. Why would you not make that?
Yeah, and the Solo movie cost a lot of money, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I all I can say is I think that yes, it's about them feeling like they don't want to make a tiny Star Wars project and everything has to be huge, but also I think that they are very protective and obsessive about who they allow to work on the projects, and I don't think that Soderbergh, a notoriously independent director.
Sure.
I don't think they feel like that kind of person would work well in their sandbox. They couldn't control them at all. And so I think that that's part of it as well, that they just don't want someone that they can't control in the Star Wars universe.
They get burned by Rian Johnson, I guess.
Right. If I had to guess, that I think that that's part of it too, but who knows?
You're missing out. You're just missing out on potentially like some amazing filmmaking, I think.
Yeah, we've always talked about this, allowing different filmmakers to kind of come at your property and see what kind of take they would have on it, I think is really worthwhile. But some of these things are too big to mess with, I guess, in the minds of the studios, which is unfortunate. Last thing real quick, I just want to talk about for 1 second. I was reading this article about Elizabeth Berkley, of all people. Just that it's coinciding with this is the 30th anniversary of Showgirls, and she's actually doing like a tour of it, where she's touring with a movie. And we won't get into talking about Showgirls. I don't really want to get into talking about it. I mean, most people know the history necessarily, great flop, and I mean, we all know that it really derailed Elizabeth Berkley's career. But the only reason I wanted to mention it is that, reading interviews with her, I'm just really impressed with how strong she is, and how she came out the other side. But more so than that, even in the moment, what I had even forgotten about was that she was 21 when Showgirls came out. 21. When that movie flopped, everyone disassociated from it except her, who continued to do press for that movie. And she went out there and got savaged by everybody. And she was 21 years old. And she went out there and took it. And, knowing that it was her career was disintegrating in real time. And I kind of think unfairly, it kind of ties into that whole thing that we talked about briefly in the past, just about this certain toxic undercurrent about women in the late 90s and in the 2000s. And I think it very much ties into that. I think if it's a certain other actor or someone not as young or maybe not female, I don't think they take the hit that she took for making that movie. I mean, she acted in it. She didn't direct it. She didn't write it. It wasn't, and it's just looking back on it, it kind of makes me angry just going back and seeing like how much people took glee in destroying her for that movie. And kind of funny and cool that it's come all the way back around where she can go and be celebrated for it. I still don't think it's a good movie, but that's just me, and that doesn't matter. It's not for me, and that's fine. But much like Rocky Horror almost, where it's become a beloved movie for certain people who love it. And I appreciate that she can get that redemption. Like I feel like it's well deserved in a way. The whole thing just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth going back and thinking about it.
Yeah. She's kind of become like Tommy Wiseau with The Room, where she's touring around with what many people consider a bad film, leaning into it and making appearances. One of my favorite film critics, Adam Naiman, wrote a book called It Doesn't Suck, where he defends Showgirls. And there's a documentary I watched a few months back called You Don't Know Me. I know MEI. Basically defending the film. And I watched it again, and it's maybe not the best film, but it's quite a ride. I mean, it's really fun in its like badness.
Right. I've seen worse movies, honestly,
yeah.
and movies that take themselves more seriously that have been much worse. I think that's the thing people don't get either, how it wasn't necessarily taking itself very seriously. Here's the thing, though. The side thing about, you mentioned Tommy Wiseau. The difference, though, is I personally think that Elizabeth Berkley is a better actress than she's gotten credit for. And I think the parts that she was able to get subsequently, I remember in The First Wives Club, I remember certain other things.
Any Given Sunday.
I think she's actually pretty good. And I think that that's part of the problem, that it painted her with a brush that I think was unfair. I think she actually is a pretty decent actress.
Her performance in Showgirls, though, is like Nick Cage level.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Acting.
But again, she's 21. Yeah. Clearly, that's the direction she was getting. That's the part the director wanted to see. And I think that's what's unfair about it. You don't give that kind of performance. Look at Kyle MacLachlan. I mean,
I was going to say she's singled out, but everybody in that film,
he's a well-known actor. Look at that performance that he gave. Clearly, the director was telling them that they wanted Nick Cage turned up to 11. Like, that is what he was asking for.
Yeah.
So, it drives me crazy. I don't.
I think that because she was the star, and because it was such a provocative role coming off of the like wholesome Jesse Spano character on Saved by the Bell, it was really under a microscope. And to come out with that performance, it
was a hell of a thing.
That's a lot.
Although, Jesse Spano taking uppers in Saved by the Bell was a clear precursor to what we were going to see in Showgirls, if anybody remembers.
Yeah.
So
all the signs were there.
It wasn't like we didn't see it coming.
It's true. Did you have any other news stories you wanted to mention?
No, I think I'm going to leave it there.
Just two quick things for me. That number one, very quick. It was inevitable. Sony has bought the film rights to the Labubu property. So your Labubu doll film is forthcoming from Sony Pictures. What a great track record Sony's had lately with all of these hits flying off the shelves. Labubu probably is not going to be the one that rights the ship for them, though you never know. I mean, maybe they'll.
I'm very out of touch with that part of the culture. Maybe I'll be wrong.
I only know the Labubu craze from South Park.
Anyway.
And so the only other story I had is Paramount Skydance making moves. They're putting together a new Star Trek film. And I'm actually kind of excited about this because John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein have been tapped to helm it. And, we know them from the Dungeons and Dragons film last year. We know them from Game Night, which we covered on the show. These guys are kind of becoming the new Lord and Miller, I think. That feels like,
That's a good call.
That comedy action. And I'm really interested to see the tone they bring to this. Chris Pine's not involved. It has nothing to do with that past work. So it'll be good.
I'm very interested in the tone they're going to strike because, there's always been a certain inherent silliness to Star Trek, even though it takes itself very seriously. So I wonder how they're going to play on that.
Yeah. It'll be
like
fun
Galaxy
to see.
Quest, of course, one of my favorites, does a really good job of kind of, it's like, are you going to go full Galaxy Quest or are you going to do something different?
Yeah. It feels like, as I look back on the Star Wars show, or the Star Trek show, I'm not a fan, but it was on when I was a kid and I watched it. And it feels like Shatner was always full Galaxy Quest inside of what was an otherwise serious show.
That's a fair point. That's true.
Can't think of a segue, so
there's no segue from William Shatner to the Blue Dahlia. None. There's no way.
Shatner ever in a noir film? That might have been interesting.
I think he's in his own personal noir film in his head at all times. I think there's that.
He really should have been in Showgirls.
Yeah. I told you I watched Miss Congeniality recently, and he was actually pretty fun in there. They did a good job of using William Shatner in that movie.
I mean, anyway. He's fun as a character, he is a character. And when you lean into that, it can go too far or it can be just right. Depends on the property, I guess. Anyway, let's move on and let's talk about the Blue Dahlia. So we're getting back into full-throated noir this week after Clash by Night last week, which we disagreed on, and I'm kind of coming around to your side of it. I mean, it does have the noir elements, but one thing that the Blue Dahlia has that was a prime thing missing from Clash by Night is murder.
And one thing it has in spades. So I would say,
yeah.
You see what I did there? You tied in a big sleep. There you go.
All right. A noir pun.
Yeah.
I love it. So a quick synopsis of this film. 3 soldiers are discharged from the Navy and they return home to Los Angeles. One of them, Johnny, played by Alan Ladd, goes back to his wife, Helen, whom he finds has been unfaithful with a local nightclub owner named Eddie Harwood. When Helen turns up murdered, Johnny's a suspect. Eddie's a suspect. Basically, everybody's a suspect, which is quite interesting. And we're going to talk about what that means inside of noir a little bit down the road. But what do you, what's your history with the Blue Dahlia? I know you'd seen it before, but are you a fan?
I've seen it a long time ago. I actually didn't even remember it that well. And I always get it confused, of course, with the Black Dahlia, which that movie that came out not that long ago, but was based on a real murder case that took place in 46, about a year after this movie was made. And so there's actually a lot of connections with that where people kind of conflate those two things, even though they have no connection at all. The Blue Dahlia is also a really good song by one of my favorite bands, but we won't get into that.
Here's the band.
God, why am I drawing a blank on the band? The Gaslight Anthem. The Gaslight Anthem.
Okay.
Have a song called Blue Dahlia on their handwritten album, which I love. It's one of my favorite songs. But anyway, yeah. So I used to watch tons of noir movies. I remember watching this years ago. I hadn't really looked at it as closely as I did now. Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about the Raymond Chandler of it all, and I think it's really cool to go from watching Clash by Night, which you're listening to Clifford Odets dialogue, which is floral, I guess we'd say, or it has a lot of flourishes, and going to Raymond Chandler dialogue is just like a hard right turn, very much the opposite, where it's just everything is blunt and declarative, and there's not a whole lot going on there. What crossed my mind, do you remember there's a scene in Commando, which
Yes.
I talk about Commando all the time, where he's fighting that guy in the hotel, and they're just throwing out these like macho cliches, where like, oh, I eat green berets for breakfast and
Yeah.
all this.
It's
And
Bill Duke, right?
right, with Bill Duke,
Yeah.
exactly. And Ray Don Chung's character is like, I just can't take all this macho bullshit.
Yeah.
She has that line in the movie, which is always one of my favorite lines in that movie.
She's
And
like, these guys eat too much red meat.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that line was just playing on a loop in my head as I was watching this movie, because like everybody's dialogue is just like the most macho that you can be at all times.
It's interesting because this is Chandler's only direct screenplay. And so it doesn't go through that filter like the Odette's stuff did last week and get kind of watered down with I can't remember the writer's name, Hayes, but he adapted that, and the Odette stuff kind of came out a little bit, but in this it's like full Chandler. So it has like that novel feel to it. And this actually started as a novel, and halfway through, I mean, we can tell the story. Uh, John Houseman found out that he's the producer on it, found out that Chandler was writing a novel, convinced him to turn it into a script because Paramount really wanted a picture for Alan Ladd before he was shipped off. He was drafted for the Navy. And so they just paid him a ton of money, gave him some time constraints, and I don't know if you all know all the details of
Yeah.
Chandler's experience.
They gave him some time
If you wanna
constraints, 2 limousines, and all the alcohol you can drink.
Yeah. So my question is, was it sounds a lot like what we saw with Herman Mankiewicz in the movie Mank.
That's what I was going to say. That's amazing. Like I said that I feel like the making of film of this movie would probably be better than the movie itself. And
Yeah.
not that I don't think the movie is good. I think the movie's pretty good. Like I don't necessarily love it. It's not my favorite noir film, but I honestly feel like the making of behind the scenes of this movie would probably be more entertaining. I would love to see
Yeah.
that story told.
It's really interesting because uh Chandler started writing the script, and yeah, just like Mank, he was on the wagon, and when the pressure came, he was like, I have to drink, and then I have to have secretaries type this for me, and then drive Cadillacs with the pages to the studio. I mean, it's just like Mank. And what's interesting is like he started writing it, and the director George Marshall, who he has like 188 directing credits on IMDb, started in the silent era, and it was just like a clear workhorse, workman director. He started shooting before the script was done and eventually caught up to Chandler. So it was like a Game of Thrones situation. So Houseman ended up getting 5,000 more dollars for Chandler, and then all of these stipulations were
Which
met.
backfired, which
Yeah.
actually backfired because he took it as an insult that he couldn't finish
Yeah.
the project, and then it only made him spiral into more drinking. And so it's a crazy story. But again, I feel like you can always tell a project that starts with an unfinished script. I really do. I mean, and maybe I'm it's just my own thing, but you could always just yeah, you could always get that vibe, and you can honestly tell in this instance also that there was a fight over the ending. And you can see that too, because that's one of my biggest issues with it. I feel like you have a script, and that's part of the thing, because this pages were being written as the movie's being made. They filmed all of this stuff, and Chandler was writing towards an ending. But when you get to the ending, it feels like it doesn't actually connect to the movie that you have been watching, because they had to change it at the last minute. And I feel like it's very noticeable.
It absolutely is. I mean, the last third of it feels like kind of a different movie, and there are several things throughout that uh, are kind of plot points that close up pretty quickly, or just don't make sense. Like to me, the maybe you can clear this up for me, and maybe I'm just dumb for not picking up on it, but the two guys who picked up Johnny and took him to the Santa Monica hotel, who were those guys? Did they work for Harwood?
Yeah, I think they did work for Harwood. I think
Okay.
that basically the reason those guys picked him up is because I think that Harwood was trying to protect the secret of his real identity. I think that that's the thing that Johnny stepped into that caused him more problems, that Harwood was just trying to protect himself in that regard because he knew he didn't kill his wife. But that's my impression of it. That's what was going on.
So we're gonna spoil.
And then at the end, when Johnny just casually is like, "Yeah, all those guys are dead in the in this room over there," throws a gun on the table, like, "All right."
Was that the same guys? I didn't pick up on that.
No, I mean, like, with the throws it to the cops and it's just like, "Yeah, you should go to this house over here. There's a bunch of dead people," and he just walks away like he's involved in a triple murder. All right, it's fine.
There are a lot of liberties taken at a finale, and a lot of grace granted.
My
for
favorite, not to jump right to the ending and spoil it, but I think the way that the killer ends up dying at the end, it's the most nonchalant. Like, he pulls a gun, gets shot, and then everybody just walks away like, "Oh, that was pretty easy. Let's go have lunch breakfast." It's like it is the best. That really made me laugh.
Yeah, these days
I've never
that
seen
would
such a
be like
nonchalant climax to a movie, but also just the most casual murder ever.
Well, that speaks to, the mayhem of the script writing, and there's I mean, we'll kind of wait for the end, but in the writing of this, it's so interesting because it's like a whodunit in the middle of a noir film, and that's very unusual. So you almost have this different like format to it than other noir films, and that I think really makes it stand out. And um, it's pretty interesting in that like this is a film that everybody talks about when they talk about noir, I think, and maybe for good reason, maybe not. I don't know that it's like such an amazing thing that it needs to be referenced all the time, but it does kind of set up some tropes going forward, like especially with the post-war veterans and like that character.
Yeah.
And
I think that is also something that has to be mentioned, that what Chandler was trying to do was something that people really hadn't done before, which was to bring, the PTSD and these guys coming back with shell shock and how it affected them in real life. But this movie predates The Best Years of Our Lives by about 6 months. I think it also came out in 46. I think that won Best Picture. I feel like we did that on the Oscar. But and it's like he beat them to it in a way because they dealt with that quite a bit in that movie, in a dramatic capacity. But they wouldn't let Chandler follow through on his idea for this movie because, again, censors step in and they don't want soldiers being portrayed in a bad light, and so they end up sawing the rough edges off of that to, and it's a huge disservice to the picture. But yeah, Chandler very much wanted to explore that too, and it always reminds you again that noir is very much tied into post-war America, and that's really what it's reflecting.
Right. Yeah, that directive came straight from the Navy. They felt like it would really down the numbers if people saw Buzz as the murderer in this. And that's what, like you said, that's what he was writing toward, and that's what everything points to. There are like little elements in there of
right. Even the title of the movie,
Dad.
Yeah, the movie, the title of the movie relates to the thing that triggers him. It's just pretty disappointing in retrospect.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, in the end, it's Dad who did it, but there are a few things they sort of make him out to be like a bad guy throughout, but I mean, it's just so abrupt. Like,
yeah, he's an unsavory dude, but this is a noir movie. Everybody's unsavory, and that kind of character in itself is a trope. The unsavory guy playing all sides, and then revealing him is the killer almost makes no sense, because why in the hell would he continue to be so involved playing both sides of everybody, knowing that he did it? It almost doesn't even make any sense. It's like, wouldn't you just walk away and try to lay low?
He tries to get a job.
Right. So it's like, if it doesn't, it feels like a pretty abrupt turn. So
the best part is that uh, I think when Dad goes to see Harwood, and this is when he starts like pressing like to get money from people. Basically, he tells Harwood he's going on 57, but to me, Dad looks like he's 70. So the idea that he's 56 is like blew my mind. That was the most illogical part of the whole script to me. This poor guy was 56, quote unquote. Um, but nonetheless, I think this film does a good job with a lot of the other noir tropes, even though it is the whodunit inside of the noir package. It has, the moral ambiguity, as we talked about. It has mistrust, corruption, murder, like all those things. And the other thing it has is like urbanization. I mean, it does a really good job of showing these guys coming back from war and finding like a whole new city with a lot of people in it. Women are kind of like they've been working, so they're a little tougher now, and that gets to the Veronica Lake of it, where unlike the femme fatale in a lot of other noir films, she doesn't feel like that's the character she's playing, and she's almost like even leveled with Alan Ladd's character, I think, in this, as like a strong woman who has her own kind of mission. She's not trying to seduce anybody. She's not trying to like get a bunch of money or something. Like she's just kind of doing her own thing, and I think that's kind of rare in noir for that to happen. And she and Ladd again, like this, the idea was to make another picture for them after this Gun for Hire. The chemistry again here is like unbelievable between them. I mean, they're so good together, and even though they're not like steamy or anything, I just think they just have such a good rapport.
Yeah, and they shoehorn in that kind of romance at the very end as an
Yeah,
afterthought, which again is a slapdash
like the
ending,
whole
so to
third
speak.
act. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I just think the two of them together, like they made what 7 movies together,
yeah,
and
with
this was
four main pictures where they
4
were,
main. Yeah,
But yeah, I think that yeah, he brings out the best in her. I think you can see that she feels very comfortable playing off of him.
yeah, and it's fun to watch. I mean, I get why they were like the on-screen duo. I mean, to a degree, they reminded me a little bit of William Powell and Myrna Loy. Just like the charisma and like the chemistry between them. So it's that part of it was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, the whole thing was fun to watch to me, even though it falls apart. I thought it was just a lot of fun. And uh gotta talk about the cast even further down the road here. One thing I'll say is that I didn't know Alan Ladd killed himself. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No.
So in 1962, well, so this picture was hurried so that he could go off into the Navy. Um, and almost immediately he was sent back home with an ulcer and a double hernia. So all of that hustle to get this made, and then he basically just came back. And then, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. That was his first time around.
Right. So he was discharged uh for being sick, but he was re-enlisted. But turns out that so they were rushing to get this done because they knew he was going back to the Navy. But then the age of conscription, is that what they call it? I don't remember the word.
I don't know.
Of getting called back, it changed to below 30, and so he actually ends up not having to go in the first place. So they did all this rushing for nothing.
But I don't think he let the studio know that, because apparently he hid out at his ranch and let his wife renegotiate his contract with the studio in this time. So he was kind of like on the sly, not off in the Navy, and just let his wife do the work for him. So that's kind of interesting. But
That is interesting.
yeah, so in 1962, he was found unconscious with a bullet wound next to his heart because he tried to shoot himself in the heart. And then in 1964, he was found dead because of alcohol and sedatives. So
Whoa.
it's quite a like a tragic story. I had no idea. I mean, he was very young. It's yeah. Both he and Veronica Lake sort of had
Yeah,
Pretty
tragic ends. Wow.
dark
I actually didn't
turns.
know that. I mean, I remember he went on to do Shane and those kind of, he had a fairly productive 1950s.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty surprising. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's really sad. I mean, and that seems like kind of thing that happened a lot in the in the 60s with these actors from 30s and 40s.
Really did.
But there's also Howard Da Silva who plays Eddie Harwood in this, and I did a little research on him, and he's pretty interesting. I mean, he would go on to do a lot of TV work in the 60s and 70s, but he was blacklisted. He was one of the people on the list of the McCarthy Un-American Activities Committee. So he was sold out by Robert Taylor, who was like what they called a friendly witness, and just
Really?
kind of gave up a bunch of other actors and filmmakers. So De Silva got blacklisted, and it kind of sunk him for a while. But like a lot of these people, kind of went on to do a lot of TV stuff. It's really interesting in the research for this how many film actors went on to do television, because like in the 70s and 80s, that wasn't a thing. It was almost like it was a separate thing, you know. TV actors did TV and film actors did film. But a lot of like what we're seeing now, a lot of that kind of happened in the 60s and 70s, so or the early 70s. It was kind of interesting, but yeah, so Eddie Harwood just kind of like left the business for a while and came back and was in The Great Gatsby and Mommy Dearest, where he played Louis B. Mayer, which I need to go back and watch that because you know
Yeah.
he's such a great character in this. I'd love to see him as Louis B. Mayer.
And that reminds me that William Bendix, the guy that plays Buzz, the guy who has
Yeah,
PTSD, I remember that he was Babe Ruth in the Babe Ruth story. I couldn't remember where I placed him from. I knew I'd seen him
God,
in something.
he's
That was like
perfect
the
for
main
that.
thing I remember him in. That he played Babe Ruth.
He was always kind of a bit player, or not a bit player, but like a supporting actor. He was also in The Glass Key with Alan Ladd
Did you
and
watch The
Veronica
Glass
Lake.
Key, by the way, for this?
I didn't
Because
yet, but I'm gonna.
I went back and watched it again. The character he plays in The Glass Key is completely unhinged. Like
He's like a
it is-
thug, right?
Yeah, but like a thug who's just borderline insane. It's just hard to get a beat on it. Like it's really kind of amusing. Like yeah, it's a guy who's completely off his nut.
It's so funny. He had a little trouble getting roles because he has like that broken nose look and that Brooklyn accent, and that was kind of a problem for him that landed him these sort of side roles all the time. But he and Alan Ladd were like best friends, and they lived across the street from one another. And
Really?
Alan Ladd went into the Navy, and when he came back, he was kind of grumbling about his experience. And William Bendix would like rib him about that. And Alan Ladd's wife took offense to that and was basically like, well, why don't you go sign up? You know, you don't do anything. But William Bendix was asthmatic, so he couldn't get in it even if he tried. But that created such a rift between him and Alan Ladd that even though they lived across the street from one another, they never talked again. So kind of
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy. Alan Ladd as a tumultuous life. I guess you could say.
Yeah. Boy, I'd love to see a documentary about him if there's one out there.
Yeah. I would say.
Um,
So I want to talk
also-
about, we're talking about the actors.
yeah.
So one of the things that I read is that Raymond Chandler had a huge problem with Veronica Lake in the making of this, and he was on set a little bit. As the thing, how was he on set? He was drunk all the time, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But so he's supposed to get an issue with Veronica Lake. Didn't think she was a very good actress. I actually think she's very good in this movie.
I do too.
And what stood out to me, the actress that plays Helen, Doris Dowling. She's a lot. She's a lot in this movie. I mean, this I don't even know what else to say. The sequence where after the guests leave the party and it's just the two of them, and she tells him about what happened to their son, and then she starts laughing maniacally, and I'm like, what the hell is she doing? Like, it's one of the more out of place acting things I've seen. Like I was just I don't know. I couldn't get a handle on it. But then in the next scene, when we see her in the bar, she's actually pretty good. Because I was going to say she's terrible in this movie, but the scene in the bar she's like a completely different actress. So
Yeah.
I don't understand like what the direction was that she got to do what she did in the apartment. I just could not get a read on it.
I don't know if it's intentional, but it seems like everything in the bungalow is just insane. Like even Alan Ladd's performance in the bungalow. I mean, he
Yeah.
pulls out a gun and like just drops it.
I also love that
Like
he slaps the guy and then he apologizes, which just feels
yeah.
like I lost my temper there for a minute. Everything about that, yeah, you're right. The bungalow is nuts. They should just make another movie. It's called The Bungalow. Where people go in there and they lose their minds. Everybody just is
It
freaking
really
out.
is. Yeah, like the bungalow is like a David Lynch movie. Like
Right.
everything is insane, and like there's constantly music playing, and that's one of the things I noticed is like in the 40s, everybody plays their stereo at top volume
Right.
because
And there's a
Buzz.
dude outside of your window at all times peeping in. You're right. It's totally David Lynch.
Yeah,
It is. Oh, geez.
but poor Buzz. Like, there's no way he can live in this modern world with
No.
his.
By the way, like one of the
plate.
first lines in the movie is him complaining about monkey music. You're like, oh, geez.
God.
Wow.
Yeah,
There's something that didn't age well.
yeah, and that keeps going over and over
Yeah,
again.
that's definitely.
Uh,
Whew. But again, that
yeah,
whole sequence in the bar with the jukebox, where it's like monkey music, he tells him to turn it down, he turns it up, they start punching each other. Like it's right out of the gate. You're like, wow, this movie is definitely going to be halfway off the rails the entire time. Okay.
yeah. And what's great is like Buzz when he gets the headaches. There's just like a super tight close up on him,
And the
like a bit of a
thumping in the
hum.
background, just to
Yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that you're aware that his head is thumping. Yeah.
And that happens again later, and it's like you just like that's a great cinematographic choice of like shooting Buzz that close and him making the face of like it's really great. But yeah, right from the jump, this thing is like nuts. But also in the beginning, you get like those cool Chandler lines where the guy's like, "Who's going to replace this cord?" And I don't know if it's Alan Ladd, I can't remember, but he's like,
No, it was the
"That's
other
enough."
guy.
Oh, it's George. There's enough there for you to hang yourself with.
Yeah.
Like that's
Wait,
just such
what?
a
Like that escalated quickly.
yeah.
Like,
That's
wait.
just,
Like you just
speaking of
destroyed this guy's
George,
jukebox thing. What? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But speaking of George, Ward Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver, Hugh Beaumont,
Right. Right.
which is like the only thing I know him from, other than he was in The Mole People in 1956, which is quite a different turn. But um, yeah, so you have like this great cast and the just incredible lines throughout. Like when she tells him about how Dickie died, she's like, "Yeah, I was drunk. I was in a car smash. Dickie died." Like it's just
So I mean that whole line reading
so
is like,
good.
what? Like,
It's really quite the opposite of Veronica Lake, who is very measured and just like super cool in this.
From now
So
on, whenever someone asks me if I want to make trouble, I'm gonna say, "Yeah, you want some?" Like, it's just that's just a
there's
good line. Anyway,
there's so many like references to like spousal abuse too,
there's just
like
abuse in general. Everybody is one step away from punching someone in the face at all times in this movie. Like it's like a hair trigger away from a full brawl. It's
yeah, from a
yeah,
distance it looks like Buzz is the one with a hair trigger, but basically it's everybody.
yeah, everybody.
Like everybody's ready to fight at any given time, which I kind of love. I mean, that's what makes it fun for me. So um yeah, it's just there's so much. Like and again, the story of making it really does feel like that needs like a Hearts of Darkness kind of thing for it because
I would say.
yeah,
It's just one thing I found interesting, and that's what I love about going back and watching these old movies, is that the idea that this hotel has a set of bungalows people live in, but did all of these places have a house detective? Like, was that a thing? Like a person that worked there to kind of keep things in line?
seems like it.
I find that to be fascinating. I mean, I had no idea that anything like that existed.
That feels like that could be the protagonist in a good noir story if it's not already, like the house detective. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, every place had one. It's that yeah, I mean it's like private security, I guess.
Yeah, right. That's what would be called now, I guess, in a way. But back then it was called the house detective.
Yeah. I
Um,
wonder if hotels still have that. I never see them, but maybe they're like air marshals or something and they're
Maybe. But before I forget, the other thing about, just the dialogue and everything, is I said that everyone is just, really tough in this movie. That even the maid, when she comes in and sees Helen's dead body, like, she doesn't scream, which I appreciate. She's not freaked out. She's just like, "Oh, brother." Like, it's the best reaction to seeing a dead body. Uh, one of my favorites. She's just nonplussed by the whole thing.
She says, I wrote this down because it's so good. And she goes, well, 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 unctre again. Like pig Latin for drunk. That's masterful. I love it. Yeah, everybody's really like just not phased by anything.
No,
except
the nihilism just kind of runs through the whole thing, which
and a hallmark of noir. That nihilism is like the foundation on which noir is built. So in that sense, it makes it just like a great noir film in the genre.
So let's talk about the director. Let's talk about George Marshall, which I think is the next part of this that I think warrants discussion, but the part where it kind of falls off for me a little bit. So George Marshall, as you said, has like 180 screen credits as director. Um, you know, well known for comedy. So what I remembered him from is that he did 3 Laurel and Hardy movies in the 30s, which I really loved. So he really got his start doing slapstick comedy. I believe that he worked with W.C. Fields. So that was what he was best known for. And in some ways, watching the Blue Dahlia and watching how things kind of explode in certain moments almost seemed like slapstick to me. But I can't help but think about that, just the way certain things fall into place. But overall, I just can't help but think that he wasn't necessarily the best choice for a noir movie. That kind of came through to me as I was watching this. I think that a very competent director. Again, I mean, he worked for over 50 years in a bunch of different genres, but always ended up going back to comedy, and that is what he made his hallmark in, what he made his mark in, and what he was best known for. I just don't know if him making a hard-boiled picture like this suited his talents, and I think in the hands of a more assured director, even when we think about Fritz Lang, in Clash by Night, even though I don't think that was noir necessarily, but it almost had more noir elements in it visually than this movie did.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the slapstick stuff, because he he comes from the silent film era where everything's very visual, and so the Laurel and Hardy stuff and just the physicality of it makes a lot of sense. Also did a handful of westerns early on, but he started as an actor, working with Fatty Arbuckle in the silent era. So he kind of has both sides of the camera, and you would think that gives him a little more insight into what you need to see through the camera. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, in different hands, it could have been interesting, but ultimately, I think it comes down to that script, and
The script is what saves it in a lot of ways, and really what makes, I think that's what makes people think of it as a classic noir, just because the script is so just dripping with noir tropes and feeling and lines.
But at the same time, it kind of ruins it at the end. So it's like the script is like such a good setup.
But again,
to drive
not the
car,
script you
but then it
wanted, and
crashes.
that's what
Yeah.
sucks. We know that's not how it was supposed to be. So it definitely just, yeah, it falls apart at the end, I think.
It turns into a real car smash at the end, and Dickie died.
Right.
Like, he has no reaction to that. Like, I mean, okay, there's a little bit of like, oh, but she's like,
Well,
I
he
just
almost
murdered our
shoots her.
child.
That's a reaction.
Yeah, I guess so. But he's very calm about it. Like,
I think he's
yeah.
just shocked by it. I don't know. I mean,
I think it's hard for him to seem like he's elevated when she's chewing the scenery so much.
right.
Maybe
It's true. Probably in
yeah.
that moment, there's no other way to play that but understated, because you couldn't go above where she was when she's laughing maniacally about the whole thing. You're like, I have nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's weird.
It was really weird. It's a weird scene.
I mean, the whole thing was Lynchian. I'm telling you, that's the Black Lodge. It's like, Anybody who goes in the bungalow, things are different. I kind of love it. I also love that this is sort of early on. Like LA is kind of the focus of this, and I wouldn't call it a character like people say. Like, oh, LA is a character in this movie, but you're in LA, and there are sort of like neighborhoods and towns name checked throughout, which I love. And uh, I don't know if we've seen a ton of that in noir up to this point. I mean, certainly not in this Gun for Hire. I know Clash by Night was in Monterey, and that was sort of focus, but really just seeing LA in this was awesome. I mean, there's that overview of the skyline that's so famous, presumably from Mulholland Drive. I don't know, but you just, yeah, you really feel LA in it. And I think that's a big part of like what sets it up to be so kind of disorienting for these guys coming back from the Navy. And it's a kind of a grimy place, like which is really interesting because Hollywood is Hollywood, and it's sparkly and beautiful, and they sort of come back to like a dirtier, more corrupt town. And that really just sets a great scene for everything that unfolds, I think. um, just a lot of fun. I'm curious to just read a little more about noir and see just how many are set in Los Angeles. I assume like most of them are, but uh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that I think it was a move towards LA. I mean, it's from my knowledge, I feel like earlier noirs were set on the East Coast, and it's possible that it migrated more to LA. And I think LA is an interesting place to do them because it's more sprawling, and I think there's more room to play there, especially with an LA that's kind of falling apart. I think it lends to a better backdrop.
And it continues for decades. I mean, Chinatown, like all the way through to things in later years. It's just such a good place for it because of that sprawl, I think. I mean, you can have so much going on that you don't like most people wouldn't know about, and
Right.
and it's happening in this kind of
Yeah,
underbelly. And
there's a lot of places to hide in LA because
yeah,
it's so spread out.
yeah, it's very cool. I kind of want to do a deep dive on. Well, there's a documentary called LA Plays Itself, which is all about LA in film. That is
Really?
really good. Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about with this?
There's really things I wanted to talk about. Let's see. Oh, one of the other lines, we can cut this out just for us, but when the house detective gets money from someone and he says that's very white of you. Did you catch that?
Oh, I did. In fact, I highlighted that in my notes in red because I was like, "Oh my
It's like
god, does that
what?
mean what I think it
Yeah,
means?"
like what? I don't recall hearing that before in a movie, much less in casual conversation. But I don't.
Jesus Christ. Oh,
That was
yeah, that
something.
was upsetting.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go line for line through this movie, and there are just so many great one-liners that are like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well,
fantastic.
there's that all the hardboiled dialogue, but the one line that really stuck with me, where he tells Veronica Lake's character, he's like, "Everyone's seen someone like you. The trick is to find you." I thought that was a pretty good line. That's just one of those fun Chandler lines. But the thing I thought something else that stood out to me is that you don't actually see Veronica Lake until 20 minutes into the movie, which seem yeah, that was a choice that was something I hadn't really seen before, like introducing what would be considered the female foil of the movie that late into the picture.
That reminds me that their encounter was like a chance encounter,
Right. Oh,
really,
that's
and
the
it
other thing I want to talk about. All the coincidences of this movie.
just like this Gun for Hire.
Yeah, it just so happens that Buzz goes to the bar and sits next to the woman he was looking
Yeah,
for in the first place, and it just so happens that she's with Bendix, not Bendix. Jesus, now I'm getting my names
Harwood.
confused. Yeah, that she's with Harwood and just happens to pick him up on the street. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that back then these are B movies and you had to keep things tight, but it's a lot of coincidence to accept.
Well, that's just like in this Gun for Hire when she sits next to him on the train. Right? Like the chances are astronomical that this would happen, especially in Los Angeles. Like, that's a big place. But I guess if I thought it was interesting that like he was with Harwood's girl and she was with or Harwood was with his girl. So it's like, why didn't they just swap and be like two happy couples? But apparently Harwood still had a lot of love for Joyce, so he wasn't ready to give that up. But um, yeah, it's just, I guess it makes more sense because of the Harwood Helen connection that they would be like around one another. But still, I mean, it's quite a leap to get to or finding him in the street in the rain and giving him a ride.
The
The
the only other thing that jumped out at me, and this is just for me, because it made me think about a Seinfeld episode that she has that fur coat and then she's standing in the rain and in the fur coat.
yeah,
It's like, geez, you just ruined that fur coat. What are you doing? Like, what? Don't you
yeah,
have a raincoat?
I wondered about that. Yeah, not smart,
Yeah.
but
After
turns out she
Seinfeld,
wouldn't need it
I
anyway.
always think of coats in the rain now. That's just one of those
Yeah.
things that stands out to me.
What occurred to me at the end and like blew my mind because I had forgotten about it is that this takes place over like 2 days, but it feels like it's like a month of stuff going on. But
Wow.
I mean, they got back into town
Yeah,
the
think
day
about getting off
before.
of think about getting back from the war, getting off a bus, and like all of this stuff happens in 48 hours.
Like, man, what a terrible experience I had in war. I'm ready to just kick back and take, oh no, my wife's murdered. I have to go to Malibu. Like, Jesus, poor guy can't get a break.
No. And
He's
all
interesting.
Buzz wants is peace and quiet. He's getting dragged in a police station, just trying to find his friend, almost murders a woman. It's a lot. It's a lot going on.
His disdain for authority is like
It's,
off the charts
it's,
beautiful.
yeah, it's amazing.
I love it so much. He's like one
Yeah.
of my favorite noir characters, I
Yeah,
think,
I
Buzz.
know.
And at first I'm like, God, this guy, this like Bobo John Favreau with this short temper, like really driving me crazy right in the beginning. But you know, he wins me over almost immediately.
Yeah, I love that he has so much disdain for the cops that even the cop has to laugh eventually. That
yeah,
that part actually, and part of me wonders if that was in the script or he actually just laughed at it. Like I do
yeah,
wonder that too because it felt genuine. But yeah, like he has so much hate for that guy that he just has to eventually laugh at it. It's like
yeah.
so cartoonishly angry at cops that it's the best.
I didn't really realize when I watched this the first time years and years ago, just how much it's about PTSD for these soldiers and really all of them, not just Buzz. I mean, he's like the clear example, but maybe not George so much. I mean, he's a lawyer and he's very like calm, level-headed,
Yeah,
but
he seems nonplussed about the whole thing.
yeah, but even Johnny, you feel like I mean, I don't know. They kind of insinuate that he hit Helen before he went to war, and like she makes remarks about that, but
It was a bit
uh,
vague.
you know, it seems like a lot more. He's just more aggressive when he comes back with her, and I mean,
Well,
granted, she told him
by the
she
way,
murdered their child, but
yeah, I was pretty angry. But that's another funny part where she's like, "Oh, you guys should leave. My husband wants some private time with me. He's probably gonna beat me." And everybody's like, "All right,
yeah.
bye." Like that's fine. We'll see you later. Like,
And then dad's like,
just
why don't
announces it.
you pull the blinds down if you're going to push your wife around? Like the detective doesn't step in. He's just like, we don't want to see it. That's okay. But that reminds me that Alan Ladd's character is kind of unique for noir because he's just a hero. He's not really an anti-hero. He's kind of like, I mean, he's a veteran and he's, you know, just trying to do the right thing and kind of falls into this. So that's uh, not something I can think of really seeing a lot in noir, where he's just the guy.
Yeah, that's a fair point. He's not really morally compromised. He's just suspected of being morally compromised.
Yeah, that's another unique thing with it. But I don't think I have anything else to mention about this. It's
No, I think it's fine to leave it there. And other
yeah.
things I wanted to talk about.
All right. Well, you know what? I recommend this movie. Do you recommend people seek it out?
I think it's totally worth a watch. I do. I don't think it's great by any stretch of the imagination, but there are enough things in it that are just fun to watch that are worth seeing.
I agree, and I think maybe research it a little bit because the story about it is probably more interesting than the film itself. Definitely, I know Eddie Muller from TCM writes about it a lot, and just yeah, there's some really kind of sad but interesting details about it that are worth reading more about. All right, well, that's it for the Blue Dahlia, and let's move on to what we watched this week.
Yeah, so as I said, I only watched one big movie this week, which was The Running Man, and wanted to talk about it. It's been getting some pretty mixed reviews overall, and I saw it last night, which was opening night, and theater was pretty empty. So I don't know what that means overall, but I thought it was a good time. I appreciated, as I said to you a few months ago when they said they were remaking it, I went back and watched the original and realized, yeah, you could definitely remake this movie because I think the original kind of lost the original storyline and just made it a Schwarzenegger movie. So I'm totally fine with them remaking it, and I liked a lot about the movie. The scary part is how much this stuff isn't shocking anymore. I think
Yeah,
I think that's the scariest part of it, about how video being manipulated to make people villains and everything. All this stuff doesn't even feel surprising or futuristic anymore, which is pretty scary. But much like the Blue Dahlia, I feel like the ending kind of falls apart at the end.
I agree.
I think the movie moves really well. Like I was, you know, surprised at how quickly it moved along, and I was interested in it the whole time. The ending falls apart a bit, and even more so for me, it's confusing. I'm actually not sure of the chronology of how the movie ends. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I saw this at a test screening a few months back, and I don't remember the end
I don't want to
completely.
spoil it because it's way
Yeah,
early in it, but the way they wrap it up, it's a little confusing to me as to figuring out. Yeah, like yeah, it's hard to say anything without spoiling the movie, but they give you like a recap of what might have happened, and it's like, did he survive? Did he not survive? Does he get the money? Does he not get the money? You know, how does it all get wrapped up, and in what order does that happen? Because it's kind of like someone makes a recap video of what really happens at the
oh,
end,
right.
and they
Yeah,
drop
yeah.
that into the movie, and it's like, wait, like when was this made, and what's the chronology of this? So has time passed? Like I don't. It actually, like, I walked out thinking I wasn't sure of the sequence of events of how the movie ended, which is pretty strange.
Yeah, it's kind of coming back to me. I don't know if the ending stayed the same after the version I saw, but I do remember that a little bit, and feeling a little ambiguous about it. But Glenn Powell, fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Edgar Wright, great director
I'm a
of
huge
it.
Edgar Wright fan. I think Glenn Powell was really good in this movie, and supposedly he talked with Tom Cruise about this, like before he made it, and even as he was making it, and you could absolutely see that because Glenn Powell is like working hard, like Tom Cruise level working hard in this
Yeah,
movie, and so you definitely can feel that he got notes from Tom Cruise.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, we watched that whole Tom Cruise film school thing. Remember, like the where Tom Cruise gave him like told him to be at a studio at a certain time,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
Tom Cruise made like a 6-hour film school video or something.
Right.
So he got the treatment, and he puts it to good use for
If
sure.
someone released Tom Cruise's 6 hour film school thing, like much like the complete Kill Bill, like I would 100% pay to go see that.
Absolutely, yeah. Only in theaters.
Yeah, exactly. And
Is that
you have to buy 3 buckets of popcorn just to get in to see it. I would do it.
would
Six
have its
hours.
own AMC like Tom Cruise popcorn bucket that's like $50. Yeah, that's amazing.
It's extra large. It's just like a giant popcorn bucket, the biggest popcorn bucket you've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I would definitely do that. No intermission. Like,
Of course not. No,
yeah,
you just pee in your giant bucket. It's fine. You're good.
uh, intermission impossible. Like, yeah. Is that all you watched this week?
Yeah, that's really all that I watched and I want to talk about.
Maybe you did watch it and you don't want to talk about it, but I am shocked that you did not mention Playdate. Did you watch Playdate?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I know that you know that Playdate checks all my boxes. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a PG-13 family movie, like action movie. Got you know. And then I read the reviews and I was so angry at them. I'm like, I am not gonna watch this shit. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time with this. Like, I don't want to do it. Because I've sat through a few other ones that had left me mildly disappointed.
War
Um,
of the Worlds?
yeah, no, I didn't even watch that. I was like 5 minutes that I was done with that.
Hell no.
But the you know
Yeah.
even the ones with Dave Bautista, the Bodyguard ones, I actually thought those were okay. But this one, yeah, it just felt cynical to the max, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. So that's a hard pass for me.
Well, I took a bullet so you don't have to, and I watched it,
Can't believe it.
and it was god awful. So everything you thought it was. It's just like slop. I mean, that's all I can say. And I had mentioned on the show a few months ago that November was going to be all about getting rid of my streamers, sticking
Yeah,
to movies in the theater or watching Criterion stuff. And for the most part, I've stuck to that. But I thought you were going to watch Playdate, so I watched it. So just so we could talk
unbelievable.
about
I
it. But
inadvertently made you sit through garbage movie. Even I wouldn't see that movie.
yeah, it's just so awful. I like Alan Richman a lot, but
Yeah,
he's
that's what I
terrible
couldn't
in
help
this.
but think. Like what is he doing? Like, why would he even agree to that? Maybe because it's just part of the Reacher thing, and they
Yeah.
pulled him in. But yeah, he could do better than that.
I think the script is terrible. Like
Yeah, the
that's
guy that
it.
directed it is the guy that directed The Animal, I think, with Rob Schneider. It's like, that's all I need to know.
Oh
That's
God.
all I need to know.
Wow.
I have some pride.
Yeah. Was that his last film? It took him this long
I
to
don't
get
know. I don't
like
know. But yeah, it's like I look at
director's
the other
jail.
movies that guy made, and it's like, even I am not this level of masochist. Like, I'm not gonna do this.
So I watched a ton of stuff, and I'm just looking at my letterbox now to see what I want to talk about and what I don't. I yeah, I don't want to talk about most of this stuff, but so because I'm doing this Criterion thing, they have like a whole selection of Werner Herzog films. And one of them is Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans with Nicolas Cage.
Oh,
And this film is nuts. Like, have you ever seen it? Oh my God. It is. Have you ever seen the Abel Ferrara Bad Lieutenant with Harvey
yeah, yeah.
Keitel? So it's like that times 10 with Nicolas Cage. Like he is out there. I mean, halfway through, he adopts an accent that he didn't have for the whole first half of the movie. Is incredibly prominent. It feels like Werner Herzog like directed it with comedy in mind, just given Cage's performance. But so it's set in New Orleans, and there are a lot of alligators, and there's like this fisheye lens stuff shot. Basically, they put a camera next to an alligator, so you're like looking through the alligator's mouth, which seems incredibly dangerous, but it's so like unbelievably nuts. And I had a blast watching it. I mean, it is Val Kilmer's in it, and
Really?
he's like turned up to 11. The whole thing is just turned up to 11. And Cage is like peak Cage rage in this, like face off level. By the way, John Woo and Nicolas Cage reteaming for a new film. I don't know if you saw that, but
Didn't see that. That's incredibly
very,
exciting.
yeah. But I highly recommend sitting down with Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, because it is like cocaine, this movie. And in fact, there is a lot of cocaine in it. But it's just so much fun. I mean, the story is like, it doesn't even matter, but it's the same story as
I mean,
the original,
it would be better if
basically.
the alligators were doing cocaine. Then you'd have a movie. But
It's just so much fun. I went to see Christie, the new film with Sydney Sweeney as the boxer.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I and this is another thing about the state of movies now, which I think is kind of sad. That again, we talked about how it doesn't feel like any movie can just make it anymore. Like it has to be something bigger than that. But of course, that's a double-edged sword because I feel like the hate that the movie is getting is based more about what is going on with Sydney Sweeney in the bigger
Yeah.
picture than it is about the movie. I saw the trailer; it doesn't look terrible. I think it's just it takes on a life of its own, and the hate that's being thrown at her about it just feels
Yeah.
like calm down. Like it's just it feels personal and like has nothing to do with the movie itself.
The story itself is pretty rote. I mean, I feel like you've seen it before, but it's, I enjoyed it. I thought, she did a pretty good job. It's the story of this boxer. She was kind
I
of the
remember
first
Christy
female
Martin. I remember
boxer.
watching her back in
Yeah.
the day because it was a big deal that it was really early on when female boxing first was kind of gaining some steam. So I very much
Yeah.
watched their fights.
She was on the card with Tyson at one point. Like she was like top of her game, but she sort of like believed her own press and got a little full of herself, and of course like took a fall and had to reevaluate. But the story, like the real story, is her husband, and this is kind of like, typical too. But her husband, I can't remember his name, Bill, I think, was just a monster. He was going nowhere, promised her things he couldn't deliver, got very abusive, and to the point where I don't know if I should like get into too many of the details, but he's a bad guy who is not getting his ego fed the way he needs it to be, and takes action. I'll just say that. Uh, it's messed up. Like this guy is a monster, and that's kind of the thing that is, I don't know if it's necessarily leaned on in the film as much as it should be, but it's pretty dark. So if you like a dark boxing film and with like domestic violence, this is probably for you. Another cocaine movie.
Does anybody really like that? It's a hard sell, but sure.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think I haven't seen reviews for it. I don't know what the box office is. I assume it's very low, but um, I was the only person in the theater when I saw it, but I enjoyed it. I'd like to see more things like this. Also watched Americana with Sydney Sweeney, which is this
Was that
kind
on
of,
streaming or did you
yeah, yeah.
where's the streaming? Because I kind of wanted to see that movie and
I
it
think I
just fell off
rented
my
it.
radar. Okay.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was sort of basic, like a neo noir western with Paul Walter Hauser, who's sensational in it. Like I love him so much. Yeah, it was typical, like kind of a Coen Brothers ripoff thing, and but still worth a watch. I thought it was kind of fun. Two more things that I watched. Tron Ares, which I mentioned. I really enjoyed this. I thought seeing it on the big screen was a ton of fun. Jared
Yeah.
Leto surprised
See,
me.
I told you it was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought there were some like phenomenal action set pieces throughout, and seeing it on the big screen is a real treat. I mean, I doubt it's going to be around for much longer, but if you can see it there, definitely see it. One thing that bugged me was the Nine Inch Nails music was so loud and like really overwhelming.
I have to admit, I kind of like that.
Did you? Okay.
Did
For me,
I mean one? I
it
really like Nine Inch Nails, but I thought that it added just to this kind of like futuristic kind of disorienting thing that the movie was going for is that because it definitely did do that. So I didn't mind. I thought it was a pretty cool approach. It felt like it was like a full submersive experience to me.
yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Highest to Lowest, how the music in that was so in the foreground and like a little disorienting. But yeah, maybe that's what it was about. But
Yeah, I mean it's not for
uh,
everybody at all. I mean I totally got it because I did recognize. I'm like this feels kind of loud. I definitely
yeah,
recognized it. I was like, oh,
but I dug the music. I mean, especially at the beginning, it felt like a poppy kind of Nine Inch Nails, like a brighter. I mean, it got a little darker as it went on, but at first I was like, "Oh my god, this is like Disney-fied Nine Inch Nails," which is kind of fun. So I really like that. I thought Greta Lee was great. I love her so much. What I don't like is seeing the "Please Don't Destroy Us" guys from SNL in movies because they're in a lot of stuff now, and I'm not a
Yeah.
fan.
Running Man. Yeah.
That's where the other guy was. I was trying to think of what I saw him in recently.
Mm-hmm.
This had the Higgins kid, and he's the son of Steve Higgins, the SNL producer and the announcer on the Jimmy Fallon show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he lives in Montclair, but Steve Higgins does. And so when I would take the bus to work, he would always be on my bus, which I thought was fun that he took the bus to 30 Rock to make TV. Last thing I saw yesterday, I went to see, perhaps for you, Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
I'm going to see that today.
All right. All I'm going to say about it, I had fun. Like I always do with these. I find the magic movies to be interesting, but all I kept thinking is this is magic Mission Impossible. So think about that
That actually
as you
sounds fantastic.
I mean, isn't Mission Impossible magic anyway?
It is, but that sounds like it's right in my wheelhouse. Yeah, the kids wanted to see it, so we're all gonna go. We're gonna go later. Go check it out.
It's a lot of fun. The only ding I have against it was my theater going experience. I got there. This was a 12:15 screening. I thought it was 12 o'clock. So I got there very early. I was there at like 11:30 and I didn't realize it was 12:15 until I sat down in the theater. So I'm there for like almost 40 minutes by myself. There's nobody in this theater. And then this guy comes in who I know his name is Gabriel because he introduced himself. And that's like the third time that's happened to me in like 6 months. And I don't know why people are trying to befriend me in movie theaters, but it drives me crazy. He sits right next to me. There's nobody in this theater. This guy sits directly next to me. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I just took the ticket they gave me. And I was like, they gave you a ticket right next to me? And he's like, yeah, you know. So, okay, sure. I'm able to see like who bought tickets, so I can see that it's going to fill up a little bit. So I don't move, like whatever. But I don't talk to him. I'm there for like a half hour with this guy, and I'm like, I want nothing to do with this guy. So I'm just reading emails and like whatever. He has a backpack with him, and I'm like, what's in that backpack? Is this like a rifle? Is he going to kill everybody? I don't understand what's going on. Is he like messing with me by sitting next to me and I'm the first to go? That's where my mind goes these days because it's like dark like that. Pulls out some homemade nachos that he made himself, I assume. Like they're not the ones bought at the AMC theater. And by this point, the lights have gone down, but they're still sort of lit because it's the commercials and the previews. But it's dark enough so that he can't see what he's eating. And with nachos, you need to be strategic about where you're putting your hands. So he's sitting there with these nachos literally in his face, like trying to find ways to grab the chips and put them in his mouth. And this goes on for like 20 minutes. And, and then people are filing in and the movie finally starts and everything's fine. But I'm just thinking like, why is this guy sitting next to me? There's still plenty of seats. Why is he eating nachos in his face next to me? This is totally just taking me out of the experience. Like, luckily the film was good enough that I was able to like get back into it. But
that's like my worst nightmare. I was actually on a train going home this week, and a guy on the train who was like 3 sections away from me opened up a bag of chips and started eating it, and I changed cars. I got up and moved to a different car, like because I was gonna actually strangle this guy to death.
Were they salt and vinegar chips?
Yes, it doesn't matter what kind of chips, just the crunching of it. Like he just opened the bag really loudly and started like eating them in the loudest way possible. And I'm like, I have to get out of here like right now. So Nacho guy, that would have ended really badly for everybody. I don't know if I could have handled that.
He did keep his shoes on, so you might not have fully killed him.
All right, we got that going. Yeah, do not sit next to anyone who brings a backpack into the theater because you have no idea what they have in there, but it's not good.
I know.
It's never good.
Well, he sat next to me, so I couldn't.
Yeah, I just want to move immediately. I should have just moved. I would have moved immediately.
Yeah.
I have no problem with this anymore. I'll just get up immediately and move.
I should have done it when people came in. I would feel weird if I was the only one, and he would have been like, "What? What did I do?"
Yeah, I don't care anymore.
You don't care.
I really, I don't. I give him the look too. I'm just like, I'm leaving.
You know what you did, Gabriel.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going to mention that I saw. I saw like 15 other films, but we don't need to talk about them. So, all right. Well, that's it for another episode after all of that. And, next week we're going to finish off Noir Month. And we are going to talk about another Barbara Stanwyck film, The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, 1946 film. Also 1946, like the Blue Dahlia, directed by Louis Milestone. I don't know anything about this film other than it's apparently highly regarded as a noir film. So I'm looking forward to watching it. And we hope you come back and join us then. Well, so long.
As always, thanks for listening to the Weekly Movie Throwdown. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And for even more from us, visit moviethrowdownpod.com or connect with us on social media. We're Movie Throwdown on Letterboxd and at Movie Throwdown Pod everywhere else.